You don't have to go through a traumatic experience to go to therapy. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I thought I would do something a little bit different. I'm about to go meet a friend to sit outside in the sun in the park because it's currently end of February in Berlin and it feels like summer, which is kind of crazy. Shout out global warming, but I'm not complaining. I'm gonna get ready and I thought I would just chat to you guys about my experience with therapy as I'm doing my makeup, because I mentioned on my stories a couple of days ago that I have been to therapy and want to go to therapy again because I think it's awesome. And I got so many messages from you guys asking me to talk about my experience and just asking different questions, and so I thought I would put that in a video. And the fact that I'm doing this while doing my makeup, I thought would be a nice way of making this video pretty light and not so heavy, because I actually think talking about therapy should be something that you can do casually and it doesn't have to be this like heavy, awkward topic, and it's never been that for me. So I thought it would be nice to just chat casually as I'm getting ready with you guys. You can sit down with a cup of tea, some snacks, I don't know, do your makeup with me, whatever floats your boat. And just as a disclaimer, obviously I can only talk about my own experience with therapy and I'm not a therapist myself. I don't have any educational background on therapy or psychology, just my own experience. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. I've written down some questions just so I don't forget anything. And I'm gonna link everything that I'm using on my face in my bio. Cheers. Okay, I'm gonna start with my base. I'm using this Kosas face oil, and I'm gonna start with the first question, which is, why did you go to therapy? Did I go to therapy for a specific reason? And how and when did I kind of realize that I wanted to go? I think I have to preface this conversation by mentioning that I was lucky enough to grow up in an environment where therapy was pretty normal, and I was confronted with the concept of therapy pretty early on. I had some friends in high school, like in year 7, year 8, who had already either been to a therapist or were going to a therapist actively for different reasons. And so it was pretty normal for me very early on, and was never this strange concept to me, but just a reality. And I didn't know too much about it, but I knew that it just really worked well for some of my friends and for lots of people. And so I already had this like open mindedness when it came to therapy. A couple of years ago, what actually made me go to therapy is my younger brother had a really bad accident and almost passed away, which was obviously extremely traumatic for me. And he's perfectly fine now, just turned 18, super healthy, had such incredible luck, and he's perfectly healthy and perfectly fine now, like everything's great. But back then it was really, really rough, and he was in a coma for a while. We didn't know what was gonna happen. I just turned 18, I was about to finish school, and it was very, very traumatic. And it actually took me a while afterwards to realize that I needed to go to therapy or wanted to go to therapy to talk about it, because I had to finish school a couple of months after the incident. I was just about to do my IB, which is the international baccalaureate that I did for year 11 and 12, and I was just about to finish that. And I think because of that I kind of suppressed what happened and pushed it down for a while, because I just had so much going on and so much on my mind, and I was studying so much that I wasn't even giving myself time to think about what had happened. And then basically after I finished school, and I think we went to Europe, my family as well, and I just spent some time traveling and everything. It was awesome, it was really amazing. But that's kind of when everything came back to me, and I realized more and more that I was really traumatized, and I had pretty bad nightmares and just issues with my sleep for months and months after. And I think it was also due to the stress of just finishing school and all that, because I did put myself under a lot of pressure. I was done with school and I was in Europe. I just remember it getting worse and worse, and I remember there was one night where we stayed with family friends and I was sleeping in a bedroom by myself, but like in the house with everyone else, super safe house, normal area, like no reason to be afraid. And I think I was up all night crying. I was so scared, but I was also paralyzed and didn't want to go like upstairs and get my brother or my parents. Like I was just up all night crying and just having so much anxiety and basically having a panic attack And I remember waking up the next morning, or being up the next morning, probably sleeping for an hour or so, and just thinking, like being super exhausted. And I had a long talk with my dad about how I was feeling, and I just was like, okay, the past 6 months have been so much with what happened to my brother, and then also finishing school, and now being like thrown out into the real world and working on social media and putting so much pressure on myself and not even having worked through some trauma maybe. And I kind of came to the conclusion myself that maybe I should go and see someone and talk to someone. And so when I came back to Sydney, where I used to live, when I came back to Sydney back from Europe, I went to see a GP, so just like a general health professional. What does GP stand for? But just like a normal doctor, let's say. I don't think I had seen him before at that point. I don't think so, because I never really had to go to the doctors for anything, so I hadn't really seen him before. But I found this really young GP. We were living in Newtown back then, which is kind of like a young, very kind of hipster area, like lots of students lived there and that kind of stuff. And so I found a really young GP who like looked friendly, and the clinic that he was working at, I'd heard good things about from other people. And so I went to him and I told him about my situation and how I was feeling and how I couldn't sleep and how I was having so much anxiety, and that my brother had this incident a while ago. And he then referred me to a therapist, and he just recommended one to me and said this could be a good fit, I think. She lives pretty close. She would have an appointment for you like next week, because there's some therapists where you have to wait for like months and months, I've heard. But he just gave me a referral for her. And the way that it works in Australia is that you can get, I think I got 10 sessions from Medicare, which is the public health insurance in Australia. Because I basically went to the GP and explained my situation to him, he then said, okay, she's qualified, or basically she needs therapy, and so you get 10 sessions that is covered by Medicare. But it depends on which therapist you go and see and what their rates are. And the therapist that I went to see, I think her rates were like, I was looking at it before, around 250 Australian dollars for one session, which is 1 hour, and around half of that was covered from Medicare. Obviously depends what country you're in. With Germany, I believe there's a similar system. So that's kind of how I came to therapy and how I was referred and how all of that worked. But something that I actually really want to stress in this video is that you don't have to go through a traumatic experience to go to therapy or to want to go to therapy, and you don't have to identify with really specific mental health issues. Any reason can be a great reason to go to therapy. And I actually had a couple of people messaging me saying, well, I kind of want to go, but I feel like my problems aren't big enough, and I kind of feel like maybe I have anxiety, but I don't want to label myself and make it seem bigger than it is when other people have such bigger problems. And honestly, therapy, it doesn't have to be about necessarily fixing anything or going there with a massive problem. It's just, to me at least, it was really about, first of all, getting to know myself better and getting to know my mind and how it works and understanding my thought patterns. And it was for me really about understanding my anxiety and where it comes from, understanding the fears that I was feeling, and then kind of unpacking those with the help of my therapist and sort of rewiring the way that I was thinking and the way that I was thinking about those fears, I guess. Because I think for me a big problem was that I was just scared of something like that happening again, either to my brother or to another loved one. I was never really scared for myself, but it was just about others, and I think that gave me this really like underlying heavy anxiety. And so for me it was really about talking that through with her and then changing the way I thought about it. Statistically speaking, now it's even more unlikely for such a bad accident to happen to someone around you. It's highly unlikely in the first place, and because it happened to me when I was 18, your brain automatically thinks, oh, this is pretty normal, so this is gonna happen again. And so you have to like really work at rethinking that and disrupting that thought pattern and saying, no, actually, statistically speaking, this is highly unlikely. And since this has already happened to you once, it's now even more unlikely that it's gonna happen again. That's kind of like a very broad summary of the work that we did. And then it was also just talking generally about life and how I was feeling, and again just understanding how my mind works and how I react to different things and how to deal with those reactions. I was also just really taught a lot about anxiety and also panic attacks, because I did have a bunch of panic attacks, and it's not necessarily just about preventing those panic attacks, obviously it is, but it was also about learning how to deal with them when they happen and just letting them happen. And I don't actually want to go really too deep into what we did and talked about, because I just feel like you have to go to a therapist yourself to get like a proper treatment. Obviously I can't treat people with anxiety by doing this video. Getting back to my main point, you don't have to be super traumatized or have really big problems to want to go to therapy. I want to go back right now. Wait, I have to do my eyebrows quickly. I have to concentrate for this. I've actually been using hair gel to do my eyebrows because it works really well. Okay, that was a bit too much, Maxi. To continue, I want to go back to therapy right now, not for any specific reason. I mean, there's a couple of things that I do feel like I want to talk about, but they're also not really traumatic events. It's stuff that a lot of people go through and deal with, and I just feel like it would be nice to just go and talk to someone in general about how I'm feeling. I was super lucky that the last time I went to go see a therapist, it was a great fit straight away. I had so many messages asking me how I found the right therapist and how you know that you found the right one. And for me, I think I was just really lucky, and I had a really cool young GP who I think had a really good gauge of what was going on with me, and then also just recommended a suitable therapist. And then I also happened to just get along with her and feel really comfortable. And so now I am kind of worried that if I'm gonna start looking for another therapist, it's not gonna be that easy, and I'm gonna have to go through a couple of people to find someone who suits me. I think it's really just all about finding someone that you feel comfortable with and where you just like their approach and yeah, feel comfortable to share and be really open. I didn't have much trouble opening up. I'm a pretty open book in general, and I mean, especially now, like my brother's accident, I'll talk about it obviously openly on camera. I've talked about it to a lot of friends, and in general, topics like mental health and my own mental health, I'm just pretty open about. But I actually found it even easier to open up to someone who's a stranger, which probably doesn't sound like it makes a lot of sense, but in a way it's easier to talk to a stranger who's not just a stranger but obviously a mental health professional. It's easier to talk to them, I find, because there's no expectation from them and there's no relationship outside of that 1 hour that you're spending with them. And so they don't really have a bias either. Again, they don't expect anything from you. You don't have to please them in any way. And that just kind of makes it a lot easier than it could be talking to a friend or a family member or your partner or whatever. And I honestly think that's the magic of therapy, is talking to not just a stranger, but a qualified stranger who can give an unbiased, not even opinion, but just help you understand what you're going through and help you manage it and just help you like sort out your thoughts. I don't know, I'm a really, really big fan, and just talking about this is motivating me to actually look into finding another therapist here. I've been putting it off because it can be kind of an annoying process, and I'm actually in a pretty good place right now mentally, or actually in a really good place. But again, I just still would like to have someone outside of my friends and family that I can talk to about certain things, and there are some thought patterns that I feel like I don't really understand right now. And I also, again, know that life has its ups and downs, and there's gonna come a time where I'm not gonna feel as strong mentally as I do now, and especially during that time I'm gonna be even less motivated to make the effort to find a therapist. And so I think it would be great to already have found someone and be comfortable with them at that point, and then if I am going through a low phase or something happens, I can go and see them straight away and don't have to go through a long process of finding someone. How many sessions did I do? I did 10 sessions in total over the course of like 11 months, and I think the first 2 sessions were only a week apart, and then every session after that there was more time in between the sessions. And so I think the second to last session was like 2 or 3 months before my very last one. But it obviously just depends on your needs and on what your goals are with therapy and how you're feeling. I do have to say that it can be exhausting and it can be difficult. Even if you are finding it easy to open up, it's just very draining. And I remember afterwards I would be so tired and just not want to talk to anyone. And obviously you feel good and it helps you. Oh, I haven't even talked about how it really helped me. It helped me a lot and it honestly changed my life. It helped me understand myself so much more, and it helped me sleep better. It helped me to not get over, but basically get over the fears and the trauma associated with the accident that my brother had. It just helped me understand what happened and contextualize it better and not let it rule my life and rule my mental health. So I would say I did get over it in a sense. As of right now, I am not really struggling with any anxiety, which is amazing. I did quite a bit last year. And I also had a couple of panic attacks last year, which sucked, but I haven't had any this year, so yay! I'm sleeping okay. I'm still dreaming like crazy and I have a lot of nightmares, but it's not to the point where I'm like awake at night and crying and don't know what to do like I used to be. So yeah, I mean, therapy, it really helped me, and again, it can be exhausting and difficult to go through and difficult to find someone, but I would say that it's so worth it. Also, a pretty obvious tip, but I'm just gonna say it anyways, would be to actually be honest with your therapist and to not be afraid that your problems are either too small or too big, or that what you're gonna say is gonna weird them out or whatever, because honestly they've heard it all. And whenever I would tell my therapist like, oh, I don't know if this makes me seem like really fucked up or really strange when I tell you that I'm doing this or thinking this, and she would always go, oh, you have no idea. Like, I've seen and heard it all. And I mean, they are professionals, just like a doctor who takes care of your physical body isn't gonna be grossed out by anything on your body because it's their job. It's the same thing, or should be the same thing with a therapist. They're not gonna judge you, and even if maybe the human part of them does, they're definitely not gonna show it. Should I do a wing is today's question. No, I don't think I'm gonna do a wing, but I'm gonna darken my eyes up a little bit. Oh, also recently I keep getting questions if I've gotten lip injections, or not that many questions, but sometimes someone will ask, and no, I've never gotten lip injections. I've never had anything done except for tattoos and piercings, but I just overline them, and I've always had pretty full lips. In some photos they look really tiny, like when I do certain expressions, but really my lips are pretty full, and I feel like they have gotten a little bit fuller. I don't know how that's possible, but it's not a filler. And then I just overline them. Okay, we're done. I am done. I have to go and put on some proper pants because I'm actually wearing sweatpants, and I have to go and leave because otherwise I'm gonna be late as always. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope I didn't forget anything. If you have any other questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. If you feel like you want to try therapy, do it. It's definitely a privilege to be able to go, and I think it's really great. I think everyone who can should go to therapy once in their lifetime. Just learn a bit more about yourself, figure out how your brain works, learn how to deal with your own feelings and thoughts and reactions to certain situations. I recommend it. It's awesome. It doesn't have to be that heavy, it doesn't have to be that deep. You're just going to talk to someone. It's the same thing as going to a doctor for your body, and that's why I wanted to talk about it in this really casual and light manner. And I hope you guys enjoyed it. I will see you in my next video, and subscribe if you haven't already. Bye.